It's called Class 1 because it represents the pinnacle of powerboat racing. Many consider it the most demanding and dangerous of any motorsport. These 6-ton, 50-foot behemoths with 2,000 horsepower are so complex to operate that it takes 2 onboard crewmen working in unison to control them. At speeds of up to 180 miles an hour, the water surface can seem as solid as cement. But unlike the meticulously prepared racetracks of automobile racing, the open ocean can toss a boat 20 feet in the air, turning it and its crew into a blazing wreckage in seconds. The unpredictable and foreboding grasp of the ocean makes offshore racing the most dangerous of all motorsports. Since powerboat racing began more than 45 years ago, the bravest sportsmen on both sides of the Atlantic have battled to prove their dominance of the sport. In Europe, the UIM World Championship circuit stretches from the Middle East through glamorous ports of call on continental Europe to the majestic fjords of Norway. On the other side of the Atlantic, the Americans travel from Key West in Florida to Palm Beach and as far north as Toronto. Racing under different regulations with different course lengths, different engines, no gearboxes, the Americans and Europeans are effectively running incompatible world championships. And that sets the ultimate goal in offshore powerboat racing, to prove who really is the best in the world. Matt Alcone is America's undisputed conqueror of the racing seas, bearing the ultimate American title, US 1. In Europe, the UIM World Powerboat Championship has its own champion, one of the main contenders this year being Spirit of Norway, leading a daunting armada of racing titans. It's time to find out which is the real champion of the world. As every military planner knows, it's very difficult to wage war 6,000 miles across the ocean. Transporting the giant boats, support trailers, and equipment is a logistical nightmare. But that's what Alcone must do. As the 1999 UIM World Championship gets underway, the normally quiet Norwegian port of Arendal is transformed into a tense, bustling powerhouse of activity. The crewmen move carefully and deliberately on the world's fastest and most exotic craft, specially designed Tenkara and CUV hulls, powered by marine-prepared Lamborghini engines with 6-speed transmissions. Representing the Norwegians is the legendary throttleman Steve Curtis, but most intimidating is the Victory Team, a 4-boat, 60-member crew from Dubai, with an annual race budget said to be in excess of $60 million a year. They blast every other boat out of the race. In the last race before Arendal, the Victory Team won first, second, and third place. Nothing like them has ever raced in America. And that is just why US 1 is here.
As with any sportsman or athlete, the whole thing is the competition, and the better the competition, the better the event. And with 12 very competitive boats here, this is the best competition anywhere in the world right now.
Isn't it a bit risky coming into the Lion's Den just like this?
Well, yeah, I was invited. I don't know if it's like a lamb to the slaughter or not, but they've been very gracious and invited me over to participate. But that's what sport's about. It's taking risks and seeing how you'll compete against other people who are very good.
The streets of this bustling port seem to shrink in the face of the mighty Americans. Alcone Motorsport seems to come from a bigger, tougher world. The excited cheers of the crowd seeing US 1 in Europe for the first time herald a powerboat battle unlike anything ever seen in Europe or America. US 1, owned and driven by Matt Alcone, a 46-year-old Californian, has dominated the U.S. racing scene for 5 years and won every title possible, including 3 world and American championships. Last season, in the most dominating string of victories the U.S. has ever witnessed in Class 1, Alcone, along with his longtime throttle man Jerry Gilbraith, won a stunning 6 out of 7 races against the most competitive field the U.S. has ever assembled. Rewarded with US 1 and induction into the U.S. Offshore Racing Hall of Fame, Matt's place in American offshore racing history is assured. Now's the time to test himself against the world.
Is there a feeling perhaps here, although you've achieved everything in the US, probably more than any other driver, that you have to come here really to prove you're world number one?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think you can call yourself a great tennis player unless you go play Wimbledon. I don't think you can call yourself a great golfer unless you go play the British Open. So if you're going to call yourself a boat racer sometime in your career, you better be here.
Right. Now then, let's talk a little bit about what you're up against. Some of these guys have gearboxes, some have really high-powered diesels. I mean, how much of an underdog are you?
Well, you know, it's very interesting. In the United States, there was always a cloud that we were better prepared and we had more equipment. So it's very refreshing to come over here and be this much of an underdog. You know, some of the teams we compete with have 5 boats here. They're bringing 3 to this race. Other teams have gearboxes, 8 sets of motors. So, you know, we've just come over and hope to do the best we can.
So what is the real driving force behind Matt Alcone to these new horizons?
These guys are the best, and in sport you want to compete against people who you think are the best. You want to compete against boats that are very well prepared, and you want to put yourself in situations that you're untested in, and this is about as untested as we've ever been.
Offshore powerboat racing is a passion for this seafaring nation. 20,000 Norwegians crowded to the very edge of the seas for the first proving battle of the weekend, the race to decide pole position. The masters of offshore European powerboat racing, confident on home ground, and one American, risking all to prove his dominance of the screaming seas.
At any place on the podium, we'd consider a victory. The big thing for us was, up till today, it was a great unknown how competitive our boat would be in this class and field of tremendous boats. So we felt real happy we were able to put down a good run. You know, after our first run where the wind blew us a little on the other side of the last mark and we were disqualified, we both just decided that on the second run the speed wouldn't be the objective, just staying on course would be. So we're really quite happy that even with that objective, we put in a good time.
And so the pole position race set the scene for an amazing battle. The victory team proving their easy dominance of the entire European field, but Alcone Motorsports giving an initial glimpse of their power and speed.
It got a bit scary for a while. I had so much air under the boat, Matt couldn't control him because he was steering and there was no boat in the water for him to correct. So it was pretty scary there for a while.
But the speed run is only part of the equation. All it proved was who was faster in a straight line that day. Race day is another story.
I think they did great yesterday. We expected them to be very fast. Today is going to be a little different story. We're going to have varying conditions, and I think that you'll find that, at least I assume, the transmissions will give us a little bit of an advantage.
We think Class 1, UIM Class 1 is the best circuit in the world. Americans think they have their own circuit, and they think they are the best also. And here we come like the best of Americans and the best of the rest of the world. And it is good, you know, for people also to evaluate and, you know, just to see who is dominating and who's not.
Shortly after that interview, championship leader Khalfan Harib narrowly escaped death in a horrific 100 miles an hour testing crash. A chilling warning of the deadly unpredictability of offshore racing.
Great start for Curtis and Yelston, off the line like a missile, taking the 2 victory boats with them. Alcone, no multi-speed gearboxes, can only watch. And what a fight back! Alcone and Gilbreth almost alongside Altair and Sorellis. It's the world speed record holders versus the US #1, and Alcone is through. Well, this is quite remarkable. They are getting quicker and quicker. Jim Dyke and Leonardo Poli, Jolly Motors, the next target. There they are. Oh, here comes Alcone, just over 160 miles an hour, and that, you have to say, looks easy. It's here in the rough where Alcone and Gilbreth have scored most heavily. Where others have foundered, they have plundered. It was said, this is the one race you cannot win without gearboxes, but the facts are, Alcone is second and chasing Curtis. Well, you have to say, the Anglo-Norwegian pairing not looking nearly as assured as they were. And that's quicker. Alcone with still considerable ground to make up, but in great shape. Ali Nasser and Randy Sisson move into fourth, chasing Polly and Dyke. And it's turning into a fairy tale. Alcone and Galbraith head for the home straight, knowing Curtis has blown an engine. No one can rob them of victory. Polly and Dyke have settled for second, but that's a long, long way back. It's the All-American crew with the All-American boat. Engines from Sterling, hull designed and built by Peter Ledden at Douglas Marine. And US 1 wins the first race of the double-headed challenge here in Norway by a country mile.
Our game plan was to go out there and try to stay with them in the rough and then put it to them in the smooth. But after all, we saw we could run with them in the rough and in fact pull them in the rough a little. So it turned out to be a great day. We had a little transmission problem first lap where we popped out of gear a couple of times. That was concerning. But Jerry ran with his foot on the lever and we worked it out.
How does that feel?
Feels great. It's great to come over here and not embarrass the United States.
In its first race in Europe, US 1 has managed to shake, rattle, and roll the champions of European offshore powerboat racing. Now, the circuit moves to Oslo, capital of Norway, for the Scandinavian Grand Prix. Windy conditions and choppy seas greet the European racers and US 1. An early omen, the Norwegians clearly have in their favor centuries of boat design to deal with hostile conditions. But still, the victory team is trying to figure out how they were beaten by Matt Alcone.
Matt and Jerry, they'd come over and they did pretty well last week. Did that surprise you?
No, I had heard that the boat was running really fast in the U.S. in very short courses without any transmission, so I was expecting it to run very well. I didn't expect it to do so well in Arendal because of the rough conditions on the outside leg and then the smooth water inside. And he had good power in both areas. He had good speed, so that really surprised me. He was a little slow on the start, but as the fuel load got lighter, he was gaining a lot of speed, and he was still being able to run in the rough water with the big props. The boat is very light. That's another thing that I wasn't expecting the boat to last so long in that kind of water, and the boat seemed to take the rough water very well at that weight.
You basically were beaten by technology that you threw out 4 years ago, didn't you?
Yeah. I always thought that Sterling engines were very good. We won. Basically, Victory won all their championships with the Sterling engines. I always expect Sterling to do well wherever they go.
It's like comparing an Indy engine to an F1 engine. I think the way we're going forward with the Lamborghini package is great because technology needs to go forward. Otherwise, you might as well go out there and race wooden boats at 85 miles an hour. We're not doing that. The boats are composite. We've got telemetry on some of the boats now. And all those things eventually will go back to pleasure boats.
It's only usable if you have reliability.
Well, of course. I mean, the last race was especially bad. Last season, we finished every race in every pole position. So we're having a bad season this season, personally. And it was very much a race of attrition last week. So, sometimes if the luck's going with you, it's going with you. If it's not, it's not.
The first hurdle for everyone is the pre-race contest to determine pole positions. A kilo run which traditionally the American champion avoids so as not to show his hand before the race. But in Europe, it's mandatory and gives the combatants vital clues about each other before the battle begins.
I think the thing to prove today is to be smart. I don't think this kind of water is going to be faster than 158, and we're not in the hunt for the pole position. We'll try to put in a nice solid run to show them what good old American power can do, and then, park the boat and go race tomorrow.
second again, Matt?
Yeah, I think so. If that's true, we're very happy with it. We had a terrible approach towards it. There's a lot of boat traffic, and for us to get it straight and aired out took a really long time.
Yeah, how were the conditions in the end?
At the end it's rough and a lot of boat traffic. Boat traffic's the mainest thing, so we wanted to be careful not to hit anybody, and then we just didn't have a long enough run up to it.
Did you think you were good enough for first?
No. I think they're pretty quick, and I think with the setup and stuff there, we know they're always a quick boat. So, you know, again, we're happy where we are. We'd love to go into tomorrow's race with the second fastest boat.
A lot depends on the throttle man.
They've given me the chance to at least expose my creativity of what it takes to make a boat go fast, to make it perform. On a personal note, Matt's given me a great opportunity to just travel the world, and he's so generous. He allows my family to come along whenever we want. First class accommodations, and what an experience, and one that could have. And then to be able to let me pretty much spend whatever I need on technology. I really don't have a budget on whatever it takes to make the boat go faster. If I can make that boat go faster and safer, with the word safe underlined, then I can spend whatever I want.
Are you surprised how well they've done so far?
I am, but then again, I mean, they have a good setup, and we all know how well they have done in the United States. So we knew they would be running hard, and we know his reputation. So no, not so surprised.
Would Andreas Uggland welcome taking them on over a whole season?
Oh, that'd be great. You know, the more the merrier.
Do you think your team would describe you as a hard man as far as being a team boss is concerned?
Well, you know, it's there's a lot of different ways to create morale. There's a lot of different ways to create a happy feeling around a team. One is to be laid back and mellow and relaxed, and if you win, you win, you lose, you lose. My strategy has always been that the best morale for any group of people is to create winners, no matter how hard a work that is. And once you're winning, the morale's there and the team spirit's there, and then you can go out and party after the victories.
Even though they have won every title available in the United States and have just defeated the world's best in their first European race, the Alcone Motorsports team leave nothing to chance. They prepare with the same competitive and professional thoroughness that they would for any World Championship decider. And again, the tens of thousands of fans lining the shore at Oslo prove that offshore powerboat racing is one of the biggest crowd pullers wherever in the world it takes place.
And there they go. Once again, Curtis and Yeltsin up through the gears that little bit quicker than the rest. Eduardo Poli, Uggland, Altair, Nasser and Hareb are next. Alcone is 7th. And look at that, the power of the Victory team is formidable. Andreas Uggland and Jan Hilstad, number 90, in 6th. But is this the day of Curtis and Yelston? It's a blistering pace they set with Victory 44. 150 miles an hour. And here comes Alcone, disadvantaged off the start without the gearboxes, but now, at 153 miles an hour, the fastest man. Into the bottom mark, Nasser and Sism near side, Hareb and Algaith far side. Oh, and Algaith has got that all wrong. Turning in on a tightish line, he's hooked it and the momentum has turned him over. So, the misery continues for the Victory team crew. But not for Curtis and Yelston. They are now out front and in imperious form. You can only feel for Hareb and Algaith. Both disintegrated last week. This was the replacement. And Alcone doing what he did so well in Arendal, catching up, but this time in much flatter conditions on an up and down course, and that's giving him and Jerry Gilbreth big problems. They catch up on the straights and lose it all on the corners. Alcone and Gilbreth again in a great position to strike. Nasser and Sism the target. Next mark coming up. Curtis and Yeltsin are long gone. Polly and Ferron are next. Alcone and Gilbreth appear from the spray flat out on the wider line, trying to keep as much speed on as they dare. And you saw what happened to Hareb and Algaith. But once again, the enemy slips the net, and the match point again goes to the gearboxes. Curtis and Yeltsin are cruising it, lapping everyone now, bar the top four. A great performance in front of the home crowd. Polly and Ferron too will be happy, but here comes Alcone again, hanging it all out on the wide line. So close to getting through on the last 2 laps, but again the acceleration out of the turn isn't there. He will now have to settle for 3rd or 4th. So Curtis and Yeltsin come home to the welcome of a delirious home crowd for a result that they will say goes a long way to putting the record straight.
That was a great fun race. To have 4 boats like that close, nip and tuck for 12 laps, you just can't ask for anything more. That was a really fun race. These guys drive really hard. Even though we have little horsepower, we just couldn't use it. Their transmissions, they'd come up off a turn and we couldn't get around them. And you know, and I think it shows, this race shows the value of a transmission. We have a really tight turn like that slows you down to nothing on that side. We just couldn't get back up and running. But it was a lot of fun, and I think it was an exciting race.
Is that what offshore powerboat racing is all about?
Well, it is for me. I hope everybody else had a good time watching it.
A 1st and 2nd pole position win pointed the way, victory in Arendal, and a strong finish in Oslo put US 1 ahead of every other competitor in the Norwegian and Scandinavian Grand Prix. Perhaps few thought that the band would need to know the American national anthem, but due to Matt Alcone and Jerry Gilbreth, Norway's majestic fjords rang with the pride of America. US 1 has proved beyond all doubt that American offshore powerboat racing really is world class.